What's up everyone, welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about the Vietnamese city of Vinh, located in north-central Vietnam in the province of Nghe, and it turned out to be a much cooler city than we'd previously thought. Historically, culturally, economically, it's got it all. So let's do a bit of a deep dive into the city and try and see why we're taking such a bullish stance on the city's future. Thanks for coming to my bed talk. Now, I'm going to make the case for why I think Vinh is one of the most slept-on cities in Vietnam, and why I think it has such a bright future and interesting past. Our original intention was to spend Reunification Day in the village of Kim Lien, the hometown of Uncle Ho, but for, let's say, logistical reasons, that didn't pan out and we definitely weren't going to be going there on Labor Day, so we'll be doing that another day. Stay tuned. Anyway, let's start at the beginning. Bam! It's the Bronze Age. Lac Viet tribes, a pre-Vietnamese Austroasiatic people group, settled the area between the Ca River in the south and the Cam River in the north, which created very fertile land for rice cultivation. The valleys that these two rivers run down create something called the East-West Economic Corridor, which facilitated trade from both Cambodia and Laos and even places as far afield as Thailand, which were then shipped from the port of Cua Law, which is now this big installation which oddly disappears from the map and is either a relic of how Google processes their satellite imagery or is a military installation that they're not allowed to show, which would be odd as it's clearly visible from the coast, so probably a Google issue. Anyway. From this port, the goods were traded across the islands of eastern Southeast Asia, what are now the Philippines, eastern Malaysia, and Indonesia. There is even a yet unconfirmed linguistics theory that the name Cua Law has the same Austroasiatic root as another city that you may have heard of, but we'll save that for our next episode on Cua Law specifically. This port offers deep-sea shipping capabilities for the city, which will be important when considering some of our later points. A big jump ahead in time, we get to the Chinese invasion of Nanyue, and they make it as far south as Nghe An province, at the time going by the name of Kieu Chen, where they instituted policies of land confiscation, creating a situation of tenant farming, and imposing something called corvée labor, which is basically just slavery but used specifically for public works. The region would go on to play an important role in the rebellion of the Chung sisters. Vietnamese viewers will obviously know exactly what that is, but for our foreign viewers, they'll have to wait for a dedicated episode or just look it up. In later centuries, Vinh, known at the time as Ke Vinh, would experience things like the Chan Cao Rebellion and so much more. Too much to cover here. But when we enter the French era, the first rail line is introduced to the city, connecting it to Hanoi. A rail line that still runs, and we will be putting out an episode on the history, present state, and potential future of rail travel in Vietnam, so look forward to that. This contributed to the development of a new social class in the city, particularly that of an industrial proletariat, the rail workers, the factory workers of the city, while the rural poor of the region were generally forced to work on rubber plantations in the countryside, a massive contributing factor to a hallmark of French colonial extraction, the Michelin Tire Company, because rubber trees don't grow in France. Vinh is also the site of the first real socialist actions in Vietnamese history, where in March of 1930, a set of worker strikes set off the Phong Trào Soviet Nghe Tin, with Soviet being a transliteration of the term Soviet, or Soviet in Russian, which was a form of a worker council. So Soviet Nghe Tin was a compound name for the Workers' Council of Nghe An and Ha Tinh provinces. Long story short, the French sent a squadron of bombers to massacre these striking workers and a whole assortment of other brutalities. The Soviet is definitely worth its own episode, so we'll get to them and what happened in more detail another time. Anyway, if you've ever seen tourist pictures in Vietnam, you've almost certainly seen someone carrying one of these, which are called Quang Gang. And it's a common refrain in Vietnamese to refer to the country as one of these Quang Gang, with Hanoi being one basket and Saigon being the other, with the thin section between the cities of Vinh and Da Nang representing the pole that holds them together, keeping either from falling. This positioning has caused the area to be a tactical military choke point for centuries, best encapsulated by being the place north of the demarcation line that was most bombed during the war with the American Empire. By the end of the war, over 70% of the buildings and infrastructure of the city had been destroyed. Now this is actually a perfect place to transition into talking about modern Vinh. We just had to get the context out of the way, because long-term viewers of this channel will know that this dog likes 3 things more than anything else. No, make that 4 things. In ascending order, those are treats, belly rubs, context, dialectical material analysis of historical conditions, and understanding how they map onto our current reality, which is just a complicated theory head way of saying context, so okay, we're back to 3 things. With the city having been so thoroughly destroyed, this presents an opportunity for another thing this dog loves: centralized urban planning. Alright, so we're back to 4. From 1975 through the late 80s, engineers from the GDR, or East Germany, were brought into Vietnam to assist the civil engineering required to build the city, leading to the industrial zones and collective housing that exist in the city to this day, and has had a knock-on impact on many of the modern urban developments in the city, as well as the general layout and street design. They've even turned this old historic fort into a functional part of the modern city with a stadium, a swimming pool, and sporting complexes. Now, I don't make any money from this channel, we have no Patreon, the interns are interns because I'm too cheap, read poor, to pay them anything, so I certainly don't have the resources to partake in the nuanced evils of investment finance, but if I did, I would be thinking about investing in Vinh. Disclaimer, this is not investment advice. Being much smaller than either Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, the cost of living is much lower, making access to labor cheaper. There is good quality higher education available for people of the city, and as everywhere in Vietnam, a strong cultural focus on higher education, meaning a well-trained potential workforce. All the modern necessities are available. Very consistent power and high-speed internet access, an international airport, the deep-sea fishing port we mentioned before, and of course, high-quality infrastructure. The city sits on a rail line that connects Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, as well as Highway 1, the main highway of the country that runs between the two main cities, making shipping simple. Though, to be fair, most cities are along this line. And these are just the economic drivers that bode well for the city's future. There are also social drivers, such as amazing food, most notably the soup lon, or an eel soup that might sound gross to some of you, but I assure you is amazing. And if you're a worker who likes being in a city with all the modern amenities, but still want to be close to nature, Vinh punches way above its weight class in terms of parks. There's the beautiful Ho Chi Minh Square that backs onto Công viên Trung Tam, or Central Park, which is wonderful. Lots of greenery and activities for those with families or a spoiled dog. They even have their own little version of Hoan Kiem Lake, which is cute. And there are many other parks speckled throughout the city. Now, this brings us to the most important things to draw people to the city. Who could forget such world-famous attractions of Vinh City, such as the Eiffel Tower, the Kremlin, the London Bridge of Vinh, and a windmill? Okay, well, there's a tacky little park on the outskirts of town with miniatures of world monuments that's actually quite cute and fun to stop off at and take some selfies if you have a free afternoon. Anyway, that's this dog's analysis of Vinh City. We think it has a very bright future, and we will be back again for sure. Tune in next week as we head ever so slightly north of the city to Cua La, and probably the best beaches north of Da Nang. So, lick that like button, pause subscribe, we'll see you there. Catch ya!